Typhoon Fung Wong is now targeting Taiwan, and the government is urging mass evacuations as this monster storm barrels toward the island with unprecedented fury that has officials issuing their most dire warnings in decades. Picture a typhoon so powerful it just devastated the Philippines with 185 kilometers per hour winds, killed multiple people, and forced over 1 million evacuations. And now it is heading straight for Taiwan's 23 million residents with even more destructive potential. This is not just another Pacific storm. Satellite imagery shows Fung Wong has actually grown stronger after making landfall, defying every rule of meteorology. But here is what is terrifying Taiwanese officials. The storm's massive size means it will cover the entire island simultaneously, leaving nowhere to hide. Emergency planners are facing a nightmare scenario where traditional evacuation routes could be cut off, airports shut down, and rescue operations impossible for days. The government's mass evacuation order affects millions of people in coastal and mountainous areas. But here is the chilling reality. Some communities may already be trapped as the storm's outer bands begin lashing the island with life-threatening winds and rain. Is Taiwan about to face its worst natural disaster in modern history? And will the island's 23 million people have enough time to reach safety before Fung Wong unleashes its full devastating power? Typhoon Fung Wong is not the first storm to threaten Taiwan this season, but it arrives at a moment when the island's defenses are already worn thin. Each year, the Western Pacific spawns an average of 20 to 25 named storms, and the stretch leading up to Fung Wong has been especially relentless. Just days before, Typhoon Kalmegi swept past, soaking central and northern Taiwan with up to 247 millimeters of rain in places like Guangfu Township and Yilan County. River basins in the east and south, including Hualien and Kaohsiung, have been holding steady at near saturation for weeks. The ground itself is exhausted. Hydrologists tracking the fortnight before Fung Wong's approach recorded cumulative rainfall totals across Hualien and Yilan between 180 and 250 millimeters. The Central Weather Administration's bulletins flagged these regions as critical, soils soft, riverbanks swollen, and valley slopes primed for collapse. In the Hengchun Peninsula and Pingtung, rainfall pushed local rivers above seasonal norms, with landslide advisories already issued before any typhoon warning was raised. This is the reality of Taiwan's typhoon season, a drumbeat of storms, each one compounding the damage and stress of the last. After Kalmegi, emergency planners had little time to regroup. Communities in the east and south faced a barrage of weather alerts, their routines punctuated by sandbagging, supply runs, and anxious glances at flood gauges. The memory of September's catastrophic flood in Guangfu, triggered by a natural dam collapse after historic rainfall, still lingers, its scars visible in fields and neighborhoods only partially rebuilt. With soils and infrastructure already pushed to the brink, the arrival of a storm as vast as Fung Wong leaves little margin for error. The island's natural buffers, its forests, riverbanks, and hillsides, are fatigued. Rainfall that might have been manageable weeks ago now threatens to tip entire watersheds into chaos. For millions of residents, the sense of inevitability is hard to ignore. Each new weather advisory is not just a warning about wind or rain, but a reminder that the ground beneath them is no longer secure. In this season of back-to-back storms, it is not just the wind that worries officials, but the relentless accumulation of risk, one downpour at a time. In the mountains above Guangfu and along the winding valleys of eastern Taiwan, the land has been quietly transformed, year by year. Where dense forests once anchored the slopes, patches of denuded earth now sprawl across the hillsides. Over the past decade, official records show that upland watersheds in Hualien have lost between 0.9% and 1.2% of their forest canopy each year. In the catchments around Guangfu, already battered by September's floods. Total forest cover has dropped by about 7% since 2015. The scars are most visible where development has crept higher, with an 18% jump in new hillside building permits on slopes steeper than 15 degrees. These changes are not just statistics on a map. When roots vanish and soil is left bare, the ground loses its grip. Rain that once soaked slowly into the earth now rushes downhill, gathering speed and power. Field studies from Taiwan Forest Science confirm that landslides strike 2 to 3 times more often in watersheds, where more than 5% of the canopy has disappeared. The Council's risk maps reveal a stark pattern. Of the 64 major landslides and debris flows recorded in eastern Taiwan since 2019, nearly half erupted in places where forest loss outpaced the rest. The consequences ripple far beyond the slopes. As forests shrink, riverbanks lose their natural armor. Sediment and debris, loosened by every storm, clog channels and raise the risk of flash floods. In Guangfu, rapid removal of vegetation and unchecked hillside construction have left soils so unstable that even moderate rain can trigger collapse. The September disaster, when a natural dam burst and sent millions of tons of water and debris through the township, was shaped as much by these human choices as by the storm itself. Officials and scientists debate the balance between economic needs and ecological risk. Some point to the demand for rural housing and the push for local development. But the evidence is clear. As the land is altered, each new storm tests the limits of what remains. The terrain that once buffered Taiwan from disaster has become fragile, primed for landslides and floods that no engineering can fully contain. With Typhoon Fung Wong bearing down, the cost of every lost tree and every new road is measured in lives and futures now at risk. Typhoon Fung Wong is now targeting Taiwan, and the government is urging mass evacuations as this monster storm barrels toward the island with unprecedented fury that has officials issuing their most dire warnings in decades. In the Philippines, Typhoon Fung Wong arrived as a force almost beyond comprehension. At its peak, the storm's winds screamed across Luzon at 185 kilometers per hour, flattening homes and tearing the roofs from schools and churches. The sheer size of Fung Wong, spanning 1,800 kilometers from edge to edge, meant that its reach was not confined to a single province or coastline. From the rice fields of Aurora to the crowded barangays of Bicol, more than 1 million people were forced to abandon their homes, clutching what little they could carry as floodwaters swallowed roads and fields alike. This was a mass evacuation on an extraordinary scale. The human cost is still being counted. At least 18 lives have been lost so far, some swept away by rivers that broke their banks in the night, others buried beneath mud and debris after hillsides gave way. Rescue teams have pulled survivors from rooftops and tree branches, but in many villages, the only sound after the storm's passing was the drone of helicopters searching for the missing. The loss is raw and immediate. The economic toll is staggering. The Department of Agriculture now estimates over 142 million pesos in damage, about $2.5 million US, mostly from crops destroyed just days before harvest. In Nueva Ecija and Isabela, entire rice paddies were left underwater, the green shoots flattened into brown, lifeless mats. Banana and coconut plantations in Quezon and Camarines Sur fared no better, with groves splintered and fruit lost for the season. For many families, this was not just a setback, but a blow that will echo through the months ahead. The economic impact will be felt for seasons. Even as the winds eased and the eye of the storm moved on, the aftermath brought its own dangers. Landslides blocked highways, isolating towns and delaying relief. Power lines lay tangled in the mud, leaving thousands in darkness. Evacuation centers overflowed, with families sleeping shoulder to shoulder on concrete floors, waiting for news of when or if they could return home. Relief efforts were pushed to the limit. Fung Wong's impact was not limited to the land. The storm surge battered coastal villages, washing away fishing boats and flooding salt pans. In some places, seawater pushed more than 1 kilometer inland, turning fields into brackish lakes. Emergency crews raced to reinforce levees and distribute clean water, but the scale of the disaster stretched resources thin. The coastal destruction was severe. For the Philippines, storms are a fact of life, but the memory of Fung Wong is different. Survivors describe a night when the wind never seemed to let up, and when the rain fell so hard, it felt like the sky itself was collapsing. The storm's vast diameter meant that no corner of Luzon was truly spared. As the last bands of rain faded and the clouds pulled north, the country was left to reckon with losses that cannot be measured in pesos or hectares alone. The memory of that night will not fade quickly. Now, as Fung Wong gathers strength over the sea once more, its path bends toward Taiwan. The destruction left behind in the Philippines stands as a warning, a reminder of the storm's raw power and of the risks faced by every community in its widening shadow. Taiwan faces a looming threat. Typhoon Fong Wong is now targeting Taiwan, and the government is urging mass evacuations as this monster storm barrels toward the island with unprecedented fury that has officials issuing their most dire warnings in decades. At the Central Weather Administration headquarters in Taipei, the mood turned from weary vigilance to outright alarm as the night of November 10th wore on. Forecast models, which had shown Fung Wong steadily weakening after its rampage through the Philippines, began to diverge from reality. Microwave satellite imagery revealed something no one expected. The storm's central pressure was dropping fast, 8 millibars in just 3 hours. Rain bands thickened, and the storm's core, instead of unraveling over cooler water, was tightening, drawing fresh energy from a swirling northern low. Dr. Liu Yanfan, a lead forecaster known for her precision under pressure, was among the first to spot the anomaly. She typed a terse message into the agency internal chat. "We have a Fujiwara interaction. This storm is drawing energy off a northern low, and core convection is strengthening. Not on the models." The phrase sent a jolt through the room. The official forecast, built on consensus and computer simulations, no longer matched what was unfolding in real time. By 10:12 in the evening, the agency internal alert system triggered a code red advisory. The decision to go public came 47 minutes later, after frantic recalculations and heated debate. The new bulletin warned of a storm with wind speeds reassessed to nearly 95 kilometers per hour and a pressure pattern that defied conventional typhoon decay. For emergency planners, the timing could not have been worse. With the storm's outer bands already battering Taiwan's eastern coast, the window for safe evacuation was closing fast. Slack messages and archived forecast runs from that night show a rare glimpse behind the curtain, a team of scientists scrambling to understand a storm that seemed to rewrite the rules with every new data feed. Pressure sensors, updated every 15 minutes, captured the deepening core. Microwave scans from the Himawari 9 satellite showed the eyewall rebuilding, banding structures intensifying. The models, trained on decades of historical storms, failed to keep up with the real-world chaos outside. For Dr. Liu and her colleagues, the knowledge gap was not just a technical failure. It was a source of dread. Every update risked fueling panic among millions already on edge, yet withholding information could mean disaster for communities in the storm's path. The code red went out, and with it, the message was clear. The threat was not receding. It was evolving, and with every passing hour, the margin for error shrank. As the clock neared midnight, Taiwan's disaster agencies found themselves forced into a gamble. Would the storm's unexpected resurgence mean mass evacuations had come too late, or had the warning reached enough people in time to save lives? The answer, as the storm pressed closer, remained terrifyingly uncertain. Within hours of the code red, government command centers across Taiwan launched the largest coordinated evacuation effort since Typhoon Morakot. The Central Emergency Operations Center activated a tiered response. county officials received direct orders to clear all at-risk coastal and upland zones, with priority given to communities flagged for landslide and flood danger. More than 3,000 residents were relocated from Hualien, Yilan, Kaohsiung, and Penghu, as local authorities moved door to door, urging families to gather essentials and board waiting buses. Official tallies showed over 3,300 people in designated shelters by sunrise, but the numbers only hinted at the scale of disruption. Schools and government offices in Taoyuan, Yilan, and Hualien were shuttered, affecting tens of thousands of students and workers. Rail operators suspended east-west lines, anticipating debris flows and track washouts. At Taoyuan International Airport, 66 domestic flights were grounded, leaving travelers stranded in locked terminals as the first gusts rattled the glass. Terminal loudspeakers cycled through evacuation instructions in Mandarin, Hokkien, and English, but confusion grew as families were separated by sudden boarding halts and gate closures. On the highways, police checkpoints redirected private vehicles away from mountain passes and low-lying roads now on the closure list. Military convoys rolled out from garrisons in Hsinchu and Taitung, delivering sandbags, portable generators, and medical supplies to county staging points. Civil defense volunteers checked shelter rosters against government lists, racing to unlock gymnasiums and community centers before the first wave of evacuees arrived. But not every site was ready. Locked doors, missing keys, and incomplete supply deliveries forced last-minute changes, sending evacuees to overflow shelters in neighboring districts. The logistical strain was immediate. County officials reported shortages of cots and bottled water as buses arrived faster than supply trucks. In some rural zones, blocked roads and rising water left entire communities unreachable, with only satellite phones linking them to disaster command. Each hour brought new reports of shelter overflow and missing evacuees as the storm's outer bands crept closer. For planners, the reality was stark. No matter how well rehearsed the protocols, a storm of this scale would test every link in the system. Lin Weichin gripped his SAT phone as the water rose past the front steps, the signal flickering in and out. His family's evacuation plan had vanished with the road, swallowed by the river in less than an hour. In Hualien's low-lying villages, the outer bands of Fung Wong had arrived early, cutting off escape before officials could clear every home. Lin, a veteran rescue diver, stayed on comms with County Command, relaying water levels and the whereabouts of neighbors stranded by the surge. When the evacuation road disappeared underwater, it wasn't fear, it was calculation, he later recalled. How do we keep our whole street alive until help can get through? In the chaos, the system meant to protect them revealed its cracks. A memo, time-stamped just before midnight, circulated among county leaders. If mass movement goes wrong, we own the deaths. The line, traced to the Pingtung mayor's office, captured the tension between national urgency and local hesitation. Some mayors had delayed evacuation orders, worried about triggering panic or moving people too soon. But as the storm's reach expanded, those delays left entire communities exposed, with the clock running out. Further north, the memory of September's Barrier Lake disaster haunted every decision. That flood, unleashed by the sudden collapse of a 60 million tons natural dam above Guangfu, had been shaped as much by technical uncertainty as by the storm itself. Two university teams, NTU and NYCU, produced evacuation models that clashed, one drawing the danger zone wide and the other narrow. The debate over whose numbers to trust played out in real time, with central authorities opting for caution and local officials resisting what they saw as overreach. The result? Warnings that came too late for some, and confusion that spread as quickly as the water. Professor Shen Yi, a hydrologist at NTU, later called it a nightmare of modeling versus reality. The models could not predict the speed of collapse or the exact path of the flood, only the scale of risk. The line between safety and disaster had never felt so thin. Right now, Taiwan stands at the mercy of a typhoon whose scale defies prediction, and whose impact could alter the island's future. With millions at risk and climate extremes growing more frequent, the challenge is not just surviving the next storm. It is reimagining how a nation of 23 million can endure when the rules of nature keep changing. Resilience. Today is no longer a choice. It is a race against time. Landslides, storm surges, and total chaos. Typhoon Uwan's full power has been unleashed, and what's happening right now is beyond anything meteorologists predicted possible. Picture entire mountainsides collapsing in seconds, burying villages under tons of mud and rock. Coastal towns vanishing beneath 20-foot walls of water that appeared out of nowhere. This isn't just another Pacific storm. This is nature unleashing its absolute fury in ways that are rewriting the disaster playbook in real time. Emergency teams are completely overwhelmed as Uwan tears through populated areas with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. But here's what's really shocking rescue workers. The storm is creating its own weather patterns, spawning tornadoes inside the eye wall and generating lightning strikes that are setting entire forests ablaze, even in the middle of torrential rain. Satellite footage shows the typhoon doing something meteorologists say should be impossible. It is actually growing stronger as it moves over land, feeding off heat sources that should not exist, and maintaining its deadly power when it should be weakening. Is Typhoon Uwan just a freak weather event, or are we witnessing the birth of a new class of superstorm that could make every hurricane in history look like a gentle breeze? Relentless rhythm. Every year, the Philippines faces a relentless rhythm of storms. 20 to 25 named cyclones sweep through the islands on average, each one carving scars into the landscape. But the 2025 season arrived with a vengeance. Only days before Typhoon Uwan appeared on satellite maps, Typhoon Kalmaegi had already drenched Luzon with torrents of rain, flooding rice fields, saturating hillsides, and leaving riverbanks swollen and unstable. In provinces like Aurora and Nueva Vizcaya, rainfall totals from Kalmaegi shattered local records, with some areas receiving more than 400 millimeters in a single week. By the time Uwan began its approach, the ground was already waterlogged. Streams ran high, and even gentle slopes oozed mud with every step. Primed. For farmers and families living along mountain ridges, each new downpour meant a fresh wave of anxiety. The soil, stripped of its grip by weeks of rain, was primed for disaster. In the forests above Baylor, tree roots clung to earth that no longer held together. And in the valleys, villagers watched the rivers rise, carrying branches and debris downstream. The memory of past landslides haunted communities, especially those who remembered the aftermath of Typhoon Yolanda and Goni, when entire neighborhoods vanished beneath walls of mud. Strained. The country's disaster agencies tracked rainfall accumulation and issued warnings, but the sheer frequency of storms left little time for recovery. Emergency shelters still housed families displaced by Kalmaegi as Uwan's first rain band swept in. Roads that had just been cleared of debris were once again threatened by falling trees and rock slides. In some barangays, makeshift dikes and sandbags stood as the only defense against another round of flooding. On edge. The landscape itself was on edge. In the highlands, deforestation and hillside farming had stripped away the last buffers against runoff. In the lowlands, rice paddies and settlements sprawled into floodplains that offered little protection. Even volcanoes like Mayon and Pinatubo became hazards.